So we're going to run through the priority lineups for me coming into game week 361. The main thing on my mind this weekend is rotation. I've got a lot of players in Argentina, and we've had the Copa Libertadores and also Copa Sudamericana that was played this week. Although the latter wasn't scored, it's obviously there's teams, there's players that have been involved in midweek action. And with long trips across the continent, they, feasibly could be at risk of rotation for this weekend. So I think it's really, really important to think about that. And a lot of my decisions this week have been made based on highest chance of starting. That does mean that I've left out some quite strong on paper players, but I think it's far more important to try and lay down 5 starters than it is to take a risk with a player that could be rotated. So I've got tons of them, to be honest, bunch of River players that could be rotated, even players like Jefferson Savarino. RSL got a home fixture against Charlotte. Charlotte have conceded a fair few goals this season. You would think Savarino would be one of the first names on the team sheet, but he missed last week for personal reasons, whatever that means. I don't trust MLS injury reports. I don't trust RSL in particular. I think their manager's a complete goon, and the sooner he is replaced, the better. I just don't have confidence that Savarino is going to play this weekend. I haven't seen anything to the contrary, so I've left him out, even though I think in normal circumstances he would have absolutely been somewhere in one of my teams. So yeah, I think there's a lot it's playing heavily on my mind this week with regards to rotation. But let's go. Let's look at where we're laying down and see the priorities for this week. First up for me is Champ America Rare Pro. So the Lanzarote Villalba stack has been really, really good for me since buying it. They're very, very solid defensively. They've got a wonderful fixture this week. Even though they did play midweek, they were a Tuesday game. So they will have completed their travel. They'll be back. They'll be rested. They'll be back in training. I think of all the players as well, Lanzarote doesn't get rotated. Villalba is very, very unlikely to be rotated. So I feel really, really confident in them here. Gil doesn't need any explanation. He has a fixture against Montreal this week at home. Montreal have not been very good at all. So, pardon me. I did sort of think that coming into the preseason that Montreal would struggle a bit this year, and they have done so far. So this for me is an absolute standout captain choice pick for Carlos here. The next one, which is interesting, is Jordan Morris. So initially when I came to build my lineups earlier in the week, he had a little injury sign on him. It turns out it wasn't injury, it was just exhaustion. He just needed to come off early in the last match after a run of fixtures, and he sounds just, from what I've read online on, following Twitter and various, journalists covering Seattle, he seems fine for this weekend. And Seattle are a very, very, very good team at home. If we sort of look through my options, like what I could play in this spot, Jesus Ferreira looks like a good fixture, on the pick score, away to Inter Miami, and Drake Calendar's been really good this season, so I don't think that's as much of a banker as you would sort of suggest here. There's Araujo. New York at home are really, really tough. They're playing on such a small pitch. They've really learned to use that to their advantage. So I just don't think there's going to be a huge amount of space for players like Araujo and Almada to play this week. So I'm sort of guiding them out of my priority lineups and putting them somewhere else. And then, we've got Jordan Morris, Rubio, Brunetta. I like Brunetta, but Pachua, like one of the best defenses in Liga MX. So again, it's not a banker for him to be scoring this weekend. Savarino, we've already mentioned. Beltran could be rotated. Colidao, form has fallen off a cliff. Like, he seems to have sort of mentally checked out and is ready for his summer transfer. So then it sort of comes back up. The decision I was having here was Rubio or Morris. I think Rubio's just come back from that injury, so he's still working up to form. SKC away, it's kind of not great, not terrible. So, yes, I'll play him, but this is my absolute priority lineup, and I just think that Morris fits the bill. I think what's quite interesting is how this will play out from a tactical perspective. St. Louis have been very good at pressing, but Seattle are quite good at playing out from the back. Seattle you've seen them do this to quite a few teams before. They absorb pressure and they counter. And I think what could happen here, just because their centre backs are more composed and Fry is more composed on the ball than many others in the team in the league that St. Louis City have managed to roll over this year. I do think that Seattle could really show some credentials this weekend as to why they are why they've been such a good start to the season, and why they're probably, to be honest, among the favourites to go far in the playoffs and MLS Cup run this year. So, yeah, Jordan Morris, I think, looks good. Lucas Solarian, away fixture, but the away fixture is against DC. Not a massive away trip for them. DC have also been pretty terrible. So I do like the look of this team coming into this week. A few factors on my mind as to how I've selected it, but I'm quite confident this one. Next up, and this is an interesting one because we so often look at the fixtures of our own players, but what's really weighed on my mind this weekend is the fixtures of the teams that I don't have. So looking through Challenger this week, we've got Benfica Porto, Celtic Rangers, Zenit versus Lokomotiv Moscow. So some of your sort of typical Challenger powerhouses have got quite challenging fixtures. Don't get me wrong. Ajax, they're playing Fortuna. It's not a too difficult a fixture. Club Brugge are playing Sirang, so you would expect them to roll over them, even though Club Brugge have been pretty average recently. But with the sort of shift towards All-Star, because it's paying out ETH, and the fact that several sort of top stacks are not necessarily going to have it easy this week, I thought, why not? Okay, let's see if we can go against the grain here and put in a solid Challenger Europe Rare Pro side. I'll be honest, I haven't submitted a Challenger Europe Rare Pro side that I care about for months, probably. So this is the first time I've done it in a while, but for me, I'm always looking to utilize gallery depth and play where I believe I have the greatest opportunity to win prizes. And I think that I do have a good opportunity to win prizes here. What's interesting here, we've got Nadi and Akumu. I was so disappointed last week. I had these two in with Cecilia, who last minute DMP'd. So I did not take advantage of Okumu's 100 on his first appearance for me, which was painful. So you might ask then why I'm rolling back a status in with them, but I feel like, now is his time to come back into the squad. I was wondering why he wasn't playing last weekend. It seemed that he had a little bit of an illness. He did come off the bench midweek in the cup game, so I'm feeling a little bit more confident that he will play. Still a little element of a risk, but I think it's one that I'm willing to take here. In terms of all of the possible rotation options I've got this weekend, this feels like one of the safer ones. The Ghent defensive stack themselves don't have the easiest of games. They're playing Union Saint-Gilloise. What has swayed this in my favour is that Ghent at home tend to be really good. Akumu and Nadi are also capable of quite high AA scores, even if they do concede. Akumu is, a defender's defender. He really gets in there. He wins tackles. He wins duels. He's not the kind of player like, say, Wesley Hope, for example, who just used to pass his way to really high scores in the division. Akumu gets involved. So the fact that USG are probably going to put more pressure on them than Sirang did last week could be good for Agumizeye because he's going to have more opportunity to win the ball. He's going to have more opportunity to get those tackles, those interceptions, those duels won. So I still think he can do well. Rounding out the team is Brian Haynen. He did well for me last week. He actually helped me secure a threshold in Cap 240 Super Rare. He's playing against Standard Liège away, which not the greatest, but I think it's better than the rare options that I would have had here. So I've gone to play him, and then Marco Gruhl, who has got a wonderful home fixture against Austria Klagenfurt. So yeah, a little bit of a wild card run this one, but I'm quite excited to see what it can do. Next up is my All-Star Rare Pro. So I mentioned earlier that a big focus for me is trying to avoid rotation. Trying to avoid getting stung by a Copa Libertadores DMP. When we look at this team here, obviously a lot of River players. River have, they've played in midweek. They played at altitude. They really did suffer and ended up losing 3-1 to a Bolivian team. But if you look at it, Armani's locked. Armani plays. Unless barring some kind of injury that I haven't hasn't seen or hasn't happened, I would expect Armani to start. I expect Mamana to start because at the moment it's sort of between three. You've got Mamana, you've got Pires, and you've got Diaz. Diaz played in the international break. He's played a lot of minutes for Chile in recent weeks, so it does seem to favour Mamana Pires partnership for this weekend, and I do think they can keep a clean sheet. So I think taking advantage of that is really important. Nacho Fernandez didn't play a full game in midweek, so I think that gives him the edge of starting versus someone like Paradella or Beltran, who did play a lot of minutes in recent weeks. Up front, we've got Faye Soleimani back from injury, and Junya Ito, who a lot of times when you see a player move from challenger to champion, it sort of, really diminishes their output. I admit Ito is not a player that I rely on every single week like he could do when he was in Belgium. But, this weekend, home fixture against Stade Brest is a really good one. So I tend to keep Ito in my back pocket and, roll him out when the fixtures are good. So yeah, it's a good fixture for him this weekend. We've also got a fit against Soleimani, against Upen. Wonderful fixtures. So I'm trying to avoid DMPs with my defensive line and then go for the big forward smash. You will notice I've only played one super rare here. I'd love to play two, but I've had some challenges, I'll be honest. Like Enzo Lefebvre injured, Yari Visharan injured, Juan Quintero injured. Like that's a lot of ETH tied up in super rares that are injured at the moment. And sort of looking at my options here, I've got a risky super rare who may or may not play in Paradella. I've got some other risky super rares. I just felt to me like, play an extra rare, particularly with Soleimani, who's on like a 13.5% bonus at the moment. Like he's on a really high bonus. So I just wanted to, go with what I think the better score output is. And even counting for the super rare bonus, I think, Soleimani would score more than the super rares that I'd have to go this weekend. Purely because I want to keep some super rares for my Cap 240 lineup. Like honestly, for me, Cap 240 Super Rare is a really important division to play at this moment in time. I've also been building towards this by picking up Andre Hansen. So Andre Hansen, Rosenborg's goalkeeper, the Eliteserien restarts this weekend, and he is on a cap score of 31. And what's really good about him is if we go and take a little look at his score, Andre Hansen has played 80% of the games in his last 15. So he is going to hold on to this low cap score for a really long time. And that is so important when it comes to these super rare cap modes, because it means you don't have to churn in and out players so frequently. Hansen here is essentially my facilitator. and he can be a facilitator for quite a few weeks to come, which is great because you sort of look at the upside on this. I did this really successfully with Kofi earlier this season. Picked Kofi up as he was coming back from injury when he had a low cap score after a bunch of difficult games, and then I just kept on running him and I kept on winning. I won a couple of super rares. I won threshold various times. Like, if you can find the right player and you can do it, like a super rare goalkeeper as a facilitator is a really good play in this division. And then what does that allow me to do, right? Like, you look at what, I've got Leander Morales, I've got Amano, I've got Higuchi, I've got Day One, all players that are really, really solid and really capable of great scores. So I think the upside in this one is really, really good. And that's why I wasn't willing to sort of sacrifice one of these cards to play in All-Star Rare Pro. So being able to run that extra rare in All-Star Rare Pro means that I can really run a really super strong lineup here. And I'm honestly really looking forward to this. I think, Hansen, just by starting, he exceeds his cap score. If he can make a few saves, obviously if he concedes 3, I'm in trouble. But if he can keep a clean sheet this weekend, then the upside of this team is tremendous. But I still think that as a facilitator, he adds a ton of value. So I'm really excited to use this and sort of run him as many times as I can until that cap score rises to a point where it's not as useful for 240, and then I'll probably roll him into 270, to be honest. So it's a really nice play, and I'm very, very excited about it. Next up, it's all about the Rare Pros this weekend. It's the under 23 Rare Pro. So we've got Van der Voort, tough fixture. Genk always concede, so I'm just looking for AA for Van der Voort this weekend. We've got Will Sands. He's got real decisive potential as a left back. I'm really, really excited about him. He's playing left wing back at Columbus. He looks good. He looks really good. He really helps the team out. He's got his peaks and troughs, as all fullbacks do. But I'm quite excited about the decisive potential against DC this weekend. So we're looking forward to rolling him out. Aaron Molina did play with Tigre midweek in Sudamericana, but he's the type of player that he doesn't cover a huge amount of ground in the matches. Like, he's very much like, his skill is his ability on the ball, is his ability to retain possession, to play passes. So he's not sort of one of these like all action players that's covering like 15 16k a game, he which helps when it comes to rotation, because in theory doesn't need as much rest, because he's not he's not as physical in terms of his style of play. Up front, we've got Alvarado. Again, did play in midweek, but Quito played quite early, so he has decent amount of rest. And then Ion Wansang, who I'm really, really excited about this weekend, because he's playing at home against Blue Wings, and Ulsan have been very good. Blue Wings have not. So say no more about this one, but I'm excited to see what under 23 Red Pro can do. Last but not least for me this week is the Cap 270 Rare. So I've had some good run. I've won some decent prizes in 270 recently. It seems to be a division that's been a little bit overlooked. I think a lot of people just kind of go through the motions and throw lineups in here, particularly now that there's ETH available at both Cap 240 and the All-Star Rare Pro divisions. So I think that managers are not seeing this as a priority, and I think that's created an opportunity. For me, it's all about, do I think the captain can score well? Because if I don't, I'm not playing it. Honestly, like, I deprioritize it if I don't think I've got someone that can go big as a captain. But if we look at it, Wesley Hope has got a wonderful, wonderful fixture. So I think that he can put up a really, really big score. Again, Rizovsky, DePaul have both got good fixtures, both expected to be starters. The pick score is a little bit lower than I would have thought, but I'm genuinely expecting those players to score really well. Jesus Ferreira, I think, he's got an option. He's got a good chance of exceeding his cap this week. A reasonably difficult fixture against Miami away, but I'm sort of striking a balance here between, playing what I think is a competitive lineup in this contests, but also, playing some good ones in other contests as well. And last but not least is Carlos Coronel. So if you look at the XG data, Red Bulls and Nashville are the best in the MLS at the moment for expected goals against. The problem is they've conceded a very unfortunate penalty against. They've scored a couple of own goals. Coronel himself dropped a bit of a clanger last week, got completely caught out by a ball with quite a bit of venom in it from Thiago Almada. And they keep on letting goals in. But their expected goals against is very good. And I just feel like they're going to turn the corner sooner rather than later. And I think when they do, they could go on a run of keeping a bunch of clean sheets and everyone's going, oh, wow, Red Bull's got really good. But it's just that they've been really, really unlucky in recent weeks. So I think that it's one to watch there. I might actually even do a separate video on XG data and sort of, targeting defenders, because I think Coronel's L15 is a lot lower than it has been in the past. And I do think that makes him a really, really interesting cap mode option at the moment. So yeah, I'm kind of, quietly confident about this team, but I was quietly confident about last week's team. And then Brahim Alaman went and gave away a penalty, and I dropped from, sort of expected finish on the podium to about 70th. So the highs and lows of Sorare were felt quite significantly last week in Cap 270. So I'm hoping to avoid a tragic ending as per last week, and hopefully bring some prizes in this week. So thank you ever so much for tuning in. See you next time.